Joining me today is Dalia Feldheim. She is a TED Talker speaker. She's ex-P&G CMO, organizational psychologist, leadership consultant, co-founder of Uppiness Up Your Game at Work, and author of Dare to Lead Like a Girl. And Dalia is on a mission to share her insights and learnings and successes and struggles to help shape the new organizations of leaders. Dalia, it is wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me today on Floor Talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dalia, tell me, why is it so important now to lead like a girl?
So Lead Like a Girl is, of course, a provocation, right? It's based on the campaign Always Run Like a Girl that we did with P&G for 2014. And it's really, we all have within us both feminine and masculine leadership traits. The issue is that the world has collapsed to wounded masculinity, where it's power over people versus power with people. And we have a major leadership crisis. 87% of employees are unhappy at work. 1 in 4 experience acute and work-related anxiety. So in the midst of this crisis, it's actually those historically considered feminine traits that are more important than ever before. Things like empathy, intuition, teamwork, innovation. So it's really a provocation for all leaders, women as well as men, to connect to those more feminine and basically lead from the heart.
Now, your TED Talk and book were inspired by a disheartening exchange you had with a former boss. Tell me about that exchange and how it encouraged you to return to leading like a girl.
So I spent 17 years in a state of flow with Procter & Gamble. I was, living my purpose every day. It was an amazing experience. And one of my first encounters, actually the positive one, was I was in a meeting and I was very frustrated. And when I get frustrated, I tear up. And my boss then, Jim, who's a friend and mentor until today, he kind of gave me a box of tissues. And when I regained my composure, he said, Dalia, don't you ever be embarrassed for crying in the office again. It's a sign of your passion, and passion is your superpower. And if you ever work for someone that doesn't appreciate that, walk away, they don't deserve you. So 17 years, I had many managers like that believed in me more than I believed in myself sometimes. But then I moved to another company, and months later, I got a new boss, and he couldn't have been more different than what I was. Basically, I was all about passion, creativity. He was all about numbers, ROI, or you die. And one day he called me into the office and he started giving me feedback. Now, I love feedback. We used to call it tough love, but there was no love. It was just denigrating, humiliating. And then he started insulting my team in a very personal manner. And that's why I became a lioness, because I knew how hard my team worked. And I was getting so angry and frustrated that a tear appeared in my eyes. That moment, he gave me a box of tissues. And Judy, for a moment, I had that warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Remember in my previous boss. But then I looked up and I saw something weird in his smile as he turned around the tissue box. And on the other side of that tissue box, he put a handmade sticker that read Dalia's tissue box. And suddenly, all of and I told him this is an HR assault, right? And he's like, oh, Dalia, stop being so emotional. It's just boy banter. I know you have a sense of humor. Now, sadly, every time I tell the story, people tell me, oh, this happened to me before. And it really, despite all my success in P&G, it really got to me. And I said, if it got to me after all the success, what do people do that just started off in the workplace? So I always used to be about people empowerment and women empowerment, but I guess that challenging boss kind of gave me the kick in the ass to go and turn this into my mission, to go back to work with people and finding purpose and joy, because I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I know what it takes to bring out the best in people. So that's what I'm focused on these days.
Now, Dalia, you have mentioned that leading like a girl is using 5 Ps to manage tough situations. So tell me, what are those 5 Ps?
So I call them 5 Ps, easy to remember. The first one is purpose, okay? He who has a why can endure anyhow. So it's all about understanding what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, and what the world needs, right? So for me, it was very clear that it's about people and women empowerment, right? So that became my purpose, and I work with companies and individuals to find their personal purpose. The second is this perspective, which is all about the mental state that you're in. How do you learn to fail? My mentor and friend Tal Ben Shachar says we learn to fail or we fail to learn. So how do we learn from our failures? How do we develop growth mindset? How do we see the positive in each situation? That's the second P. The third P, I call it power up. We know today it's not about managing time, it's about managing energy, and you can't pour from an empty jug. And sadly, and especially working here on the trade, we know we kind of run ourselves, and everyone's kind of, running ourselves too tight and getting into burnout. So the third P is all around taking care of our own energy, okay? Sleep, eating, touch, recovery, etc. The fourth P, and the most important P, is around people. And research shows, if you ask me, Dalia, what is the one secret to happiness? It's really people. The quality of our life is the quality of our relationship. So as a leader, how do you invest in getting to know your people as human beings? How much do you invest in creating an environment? And my secret sauce, if you like, the fifth P, is around positivity. And that's not being happy all the time, but really being emotionally brave, knowing to recognize all emotions are a sign, of being human. So how do you accept negative emotions, but then look at finding more positive? There's an upward spiral of positivity Barbara Fredrickson talks about, which is how can we insert hope? How can we insert giving? When we give, we receive. How do we insert gratitude? When we appreciate the good in our life, the good in our life appreciates, increases in value. So those are some of the P's that I talk about in the book of how can we take any situation and basically come out of it with something that I've learned is post-traumatic growth. So how do we take our own pain and turn it into our purpose?
Now, something you've also talked about is core purpose and finding that as a means of being fulfilled. Tell me, how do we go about finding our core purpose?
So probably my favorite workshop that I run with companies, and I just spent a whole year with Google, from personal purpose to team purpose, aligned with company purpose. And for those kind of watching a very simplified version, I go through the life map, highs and lows, and through that we find our themes, and through that we find, what are we passionate about? So first, what are you passionate about in general in life? Then what are you good at? Because we know too often we're focusing on what we need to improve, but actually focusing on your strengths, you're 2 times likely to succeed. So what are you good at? What are your strengths? And then what does the world need? So basically really understanding how you can bring your best self to the workplace. And CEOs sometimes get scared when I tell them, I do a find your why, and they're like, all my employees will leave and live in the Himalayas. And I always say to them, no, everyone has a gift, and it's about how do we give our gift to our current workplace and bring out our best. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the whole workshop.
All right, well, Dalia, amazing to talk with you today. Thank you so much for joining me on Floor Talk. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Judy. Lovely to be here.